Okay, welcome all of you to Aloron. This is Aloron. After a long time, we have come, but the wait is also very curious. We are curious about the wait, and so much to do. So, season 1, season 2, season 3, season 4, so on and so forth. We can just go on. But season 1 আমি যেটা চাইছি, initially we have talked about great cinematographers, people with great potential who are doing great work. Maybe they have done few works, but they have a lot of potential to do great works. So we are talking about all those people, and accordingly we are organizing the sessions, and you will see that we are talking about the technicalities, the technical aspects, the artistic aspects, the aesthetic, the philosophy and poetry and all these things too. For example, we have talked about the movement, we have talked about light, we have talked about angles, high angle, low angle, Dutch angle, different kinds of angles. We have talked about movement, we have talked about the space, we have talked about 180-degree line, how you can break the rule, how you can use it for your own movies. But ultimately you have to understand, what is it doing? It is telling a story, right? It is serving the story or serving the narrative, because that is what you are supposed to do. So few things I will talk about today: poetry, philosophy, literature and cinematography. So poetry, philosophy and cinematography, this is today's title. Now initially, if you tell it to someone, they will say poetry is about words. Is it only about words? There is rhythm, there are so many things. Philosophy, is it only just great thoughts, or it is something more than that? So poetry, philosophy, then you have a camera, and camera is a tool by which you are expressing yourself. So maybe somebody is having a pen and that person wrote a book. It can be a poetry book, it can be a book of philosophy or whatever it is, literature. But that is affecting you as a human being when you are reading that, when you are going through the quotes, when you are going through the books, when you are going through the creations. It can be prose, it can be poetry, it can be anything, lyrical poetry, songs, music, it can be anything, songwriting. It is affecting you because you are letting go, you are embracing all these things, you are indulging yourself to enjoy the art, enjoy the creations. You are getting moved by it, sometimes consciously, sometimes subconsciously or unconsciously, but you are getting affected by it. Emotions, great emotions. When you watch a movie, time, emotional arc, the character arc, the narrative is unfolding, the plot is unfolding, resolution, climax, plateau, and then all these things. Sometimes it is a gripping narrative, it is keep you on the edge of your seat. Sometimes it is an observation, sometimes you are just looking at life as it is. Life, people, nature, you are just looking at life or people, emotional arcs, emotions of human beings, nature, and you are having a meditation, you are just looking at it, you are looking at the conflict. So many ways we can tell a story, so many different stories we can tell. So that's why you should never get bored out of it, you should never get complacent, because there is so much to do. We are always inventing, reinventing, we are dealing with the multimodal complexities, medium specificity, and we are looking for innovation, creativity, and we are having so many things at our disposal. We have music, we have with the visual aspects, and so many things we can do. But I'm talking about poetry, cinematography, lyrical poetry, cinematography, and all these things. If you are having black and white, shades of black, gray and white, you're having information, light, wisdom, philosophy. Light itself is knowledge, light itself is philosophy, if you look at cinematography or photography in a really serious way. But few things I will like to enhance, a few things I will like to mention, that You can look at the craft aspects, you can look at the artistic aspects, but you really need to love it. You really need to be passionate about it. That's what will separate you from the rest, how you are different from the rest. Many people are having cameras, many people are trying to be cinematographers, but not everyone is becoming a cinematographer. So you have to put the effort. You have to work on yourself, you have to invest in yourself. Then you will see that whenever something is wrong, you yourself is not allowing that. You are not making that compromise, because the story is important, the work is important, how you are contributing to that project, that is important. And this is happening normally, so nobody has to tell you something. Okay, the discussions will happen, how you can change the shot, how you can put more energy into it, how you can change the angle, how you can change the light, how you can change the movement. This discussions will be happening regarding all these aspects, but you yourself are doing a lot, so sometimes the director will give you a ground to play with and you will do your own part. Occasionally he or she will mentor. Sometimes you will take the responsibility. If something is wrong, you will be the first one to tell, no, I will not do that because this is a wrong thing, and you can give an explanation to the director too. So with open environments we can do that. But you will understand that art direction, production design, cinematography, these things are not mutually exclusive. It is not these things are not separate, So you can learn so much from an art director, production designer. We have talked about all these things. But one thing I will mention specifically today, that is, you are not getting in the way of storytelling. That is very important. Now, for some people, it is the mindset, they want to get away, they want to get in the way of storytelling. That's why so many mistakes happening. And they will give a lot of definitions for this. They will give a lot of they will use a lot of terminology for this. But ultimately, they are not respecting the storytelling. They are not respecting the narrative. They are not respecting the process by which we are making the movie. So that's a particular mindset. If you see that around you, you know how to manage that. So that's why leadership is important, direction is important. But what you can do is not getting in the way of storytelling. So we have cinematography, photography, visual arts, whatever you call it. Then we have the story to serve, We have the narrative that we have to serve. Now, are you getting in the way of that storytelling? Now, what is your priority? And now it's a tricky thing, because sometimes, you know that, as I already mentioned, so when you are focusing on the cinematography aspects, you know that when you are going, you are letting go, you are embracing all these things, you are going for your own cinematography, that will obviously help the narrative, that will obviously help the poetry, that will obviously help the philosophical aspects of the filmmaking. So explicitly you are not mentioning it, rather you have maintained yourself in such a way, you have created yourself in such a way, you have developed yourself as a human being, as a poet, as an artist in such a way that whenever the situation, because ultimately we are having the situations, and the situations or the circumstances are calling for something. Now you are rising up to the occasion to do your part, to do your job, if I say so, or go beyond it, So you are contributing to that. So as a human being, you are making yourself first. You are developing yourself as an artist, as a human being, as a craftsman, so that you can talk to the gaffers too, you can talk to the camera operators, focus pullers, and all these people you can talk to, So you are developing yourself. Then when the situation is coming, you know how to deal with it. Sometimes very meticulously, in a planned way, you are putting the camera here, you are doing staging and blocking, you are doing this and that. Sometimes you are just letting yourself melt in the process. You are just letting go, and the process is telling you what is the right thing to do, what are the alternatives, what is the one to choose, which are the one to choose from those alternatives. So those things will happen automatically if you are really into this, if you are really passionate about it. Sometimes people call it professionalism. Sometimes, this profession is very different from the other professions. That is one thing I want to mention again and again. This is not a usual boring profession. This is very different, and it will call for a lot of different things as well. So the more you enhance yourself, as a wholesome human being, as a holistic human being, you will see that you can contribute in so many ways. Sometimes you can solve problems of art direction and production design being a cinematographer. But if you have the mindset that I am the cinematographer, okay, I am supposed to do my job, that's okay. But if there is a problem in art direction or production design, you can solve. So it is not like that, okay, I am the cinematographer, I won't be solving that problem. That is for someone else. Rather, you can go for a collaborative approach, you can go for a discussion where you can actually put the bigger purpose first, the narrative, the storytelling, the director, helping the director, the collaborative effort. Because filmmaking is a collaborative medium and you cannot deny that. That is like that. So in all the great films, you will see that there can be one leadership, the creative leader, the director, and there can be many leadership instances where you are rising up to the occasion as an art director, as a production designer, as a cinematographer. So you should be open to that. We are all solving the problems together. We are all making the movie together, and we are all helping each other out during the process. We are learning so many things. Maybe a problem is teaching us so much. So those things I want to mention. But scheduling, management, budgeting, those are one aspect, because sometimes you have to look at it objectively. Maybe at one time you are looking at the aesthetics, you are looking at the artistic aspects. At some other time you are switching your hats. You have to think of the duration of the shooting, the schedule and the budget. You have 60 days to shoot a movie, for example, and you have an allocated budget. Now you have to design your shots, you have to design your takes, you have to design this and that with the director, so that you can make it happen within the 60 days. Maybe there can be 5 or 10 days extra, or you can reshoot if the requirement arises. But you know that you have the management side as well, and that is something you gain from experience. How to shoot a movie in 30 days, you are changing things accordingly. How you are shooting it in 60 days, you are changing things accordingly. So these are the things you learn, and you make mistakes and you learn from them. So it's a constant learning. That is a great thing to have. You're learning constantly, dealing with different directors, dealing with different people, dealing with different actors, dealing with different collaborators, and you're learning so much, as human beings, as artists. So what is your priority? That's a tricky thing. You're not getting in the way of storytelling. You are not, if the poetry is required, you are not getting in the way of the poetry itself. You are not getting in the way of the philosophy itself. Rather, you are helping it to nourish, you are helping it to flourish, you are helping it to express itself. So we have cinematography, photography, but we have a narrative to serve, we have a story to serve, we have a vision to serve, if I say. Because if the director is having the vision, ultimately what is going to the screen, people are having that. So we have talked about angles, we have talked about light. We will continue to talk about life in different ways, in different channels, because light is, as I said, light is knowledge, light is philosophy, light is information, light is wisdom. Because the more you know that, the more you study the old paintings, you will see there is a lot of play of light, chiaroscuro, we call it, light and shadow. And there are so many other things as well. If you take one color, you will have shades of color, If you can have black and white, you will have different kinds of black and white. Now, what is the one you are choosing? That will require decision making. So, situations, decision making, you will be always faced with all these things. You will always face all these things, all these circumstances, problems. Then you have to solve those problems, to serve the story, to serve the film, to serve the narrative, to serve the situation, So many things you learn. Physically demanding job sometimes, because the camera operators, if you are operating it on your own, you will see that you are moving the camera, you are having a steady cam, then you need to be physically it is a physical demanding job too. So you need to prepare yourself for that. But for that, you are not losing the poetry aspect. So it is like, that's why I mentioned in the first place, if you are making yourself in that way, then you are not thinking about all these things in a separate way. You're just doing your thing. and everything is happening automatically. So that is a great thing to have, And nowadays, before shooting the movie, we are having pre-visualizations, storyboards, especially if it's a big budget movie. Before actually going into the shoot or principal photography, many people are doing previs. They are just having an idea how it will look like, how orchestration will look like, how the staging and blocking will look like, how the movement of the camera will look like. They are just having an idea. Sometimes they have to convince the producer, so that's why they are doing that. It will reduce the budget a lot too. So rather than actually shooting it and going for the mistakes, you can have certain kind of idea. This is the previous. It will look like, okay, whatever will be happening after that, we can manage that during the shoot, during in the set itself. So those things are happening. That's why storyboarding will give you some visual idea of the movie itself. Some people are doing and they used to do meticulous storyboarding, some directors, and some people are doing that. Some people are very meticulous about the storytelling. Some people have even colored their storyboards, like properly drawn cartoons, or some people are doing it like properly decorated storyboards. Many people have done that, and it is not an extra burden or extra effort they are putting. But that is also part of the pre-production or the entire filmmaking process. So that is about a mindset. If you think that that is a burden, I am not going to do that, then you are not going into that process in that way. So that's why the more you are into all these things, you will see that you have to say a lot of things. And sometimes in the storyboard, you will find the mistakes. In the shoots, you won't be doing the mistakes. So it will give you some kind of idea, visual concept, and you will go for the shoot. Then motion capture is there nowadays. So since I'm talking about poetry and philosophy, 3D camera, stereoscopic camera, that doesn't mean that we are losing the poetry. Motion capture is giving the actor to perform in a certain way. When you are doing the staging and blocking in a different space where you don't have the motion capture devices, then you are working in a different way. Now the situation will call for something, sometimes you are focusing on that, so you can shoot a lot of stuff, you can adapt to the circumstances, and you can do the scheduling and budgeting accordingly. Sometimes you are not going for that kind of shoot. You are just going for this old school methods, and you are having staging, blocking, the actors are moving. Some people are staying near the camera. They look at the dailies and accordingly they will go for the shots and takes. Some directors will go to the camera, to the actors, and they will try to, stay around the actors to feel the energy, how they are acting. So there are different kinds of people. Some people will try to stay near the camera. Some people will try to stay near the actors. Now it is not something good or bad. It's your own individual style of working. So if you feel that you are comfortable with your camera, then you can just stay there and the actor will perform there. You will just stay behind the camera. You will look at the screen and you will understand whether it's the right thing or not. And sometimes somebody else will do that and you will be near the cameras, and occasionally you will come and look at the monitor and you will see whether the thing is right or not. And you can do both, and different situations will call for different things and you can move back and forth. So these things you have to understand. So problem solving is an integral part of filmmaking, decision making, problem solving. So we have talked about angles, lighting, production design, color. So those things we will talk about all the time. But you have to understand, if you do everything, ultimately what are we left with? As I just mentioned, situations, and the situations will call for your problem solving and decision making, right? So, and you have to serve the narrative and the story as well. So you understand the storytelling, you understand your contribution. Now poetry and prose, when you understand all these things and you are not bogged down by the circumstances, and you can go beyond it, and you are looking at the poetic elements, you are looking at the poetic aspects, you are just delving deep into the process, and you are going for the philosophy, you are going for the poetry, and you are not mentioning it explicitly. That is what I want to mention again and again. Poetry is an integral part of yourself, or maybe the director, or maybe both. Philosophy is an integral part. Obviously, as an artist, you will have all those things. Then when you are having the camera, you are doing your part. You are using light, you are using the position of the camera, the movement of the camera, the angles, the color, whatever you want to have, your palette. And you are going for the poetic aspects, you are going for the philosophical aspects. Not explicitly, but it's a part of your storytelling. The situation is demanding for that. The narrative is demanding for that. And you are just serving the narrative. Sometimes you know so much that you are taking a decision and everybody is inspired by that. As a cinematographer, you are taking some decision and the crew members are just mesmerized by that. What a shot, what a scene, what a take. Actors will feel motivated to perform more in that kind of environment. So those things we are talking about, you know. Visceral, something, a very visceral experience you can have, metaphorical transformations, semantics, all these things you will look at, because you will see it is not about the language. If you talk about poetry, it is not about the language only. Rhythm, language, you know, metaphors, your face structure, there are so many other things happening. But if you have a feeling for the poetry, whether it's words, whether it's light, whether it's camera, whether it's music, you will see poetry is everywhere, music is everywhere, and you have a sense of it. That is something you need to cultivate if you really want to be great, you know, because ultimately you cannot ignore that it is very new art, modern art, and there is so much to do, you know, and multimodal complexities are there, as I just mentioned, but ultimately you have to take the decisions. So this is what I mentioned, and one tip before ending, that you can read a lot of poems, maybe you can write a lot of poems too, but there is a poet inside you, there is a philosopher inside you, and there is no great, it is not a great thing that you are denying the poet inside you. Maybe today you are not writing, tomorrow you can write. With your prose you can give the poetic touches as well. So there is a poet inside you, there is a philosopher inside you, there is a great artist inside you. Now whether you are giving the chance to flourish it or not, that artistic aspect or philosophical aspects. So that is the decision you have to make too. So that's why filmmaking is a great profession and you are having so many opportunities, you know. And camera is a tool with which you are expressing yourself if you particularly want to choose cinematography. But I am doing this discussion from a director perspective, it can benefit you. From the cinematographer's perspective, it can benefit you. From the art director's, production designer's perspective, it can benefit you. In a wholesome way, it can benefit you. And you will understand when the situation will come, you need to take the right action, and you will take the right action. Not only that, you will have some alternatives as well. And you know what to go for. Thank you so much.